Commentary from Neville Goddard's 1939 book, At Your Command, by Lila for Nevillution. Neville opens that this book contains the very essence of the principles of expression. He goes on to say that it could have been several hundred pages long, but that would have defeated the purpose of this book, because commands, to be effective, must be short and to the point. The greatest command ever recorded is found in the few simple words, and God said, "Let there be light." So in sharing the truth that has been revealed to him, Neville is also sticking to this principle. Neville says, "You do not command things to appear by your words or loud affirmation. Such vain repetition is more often than not confirmation of the opposite. Decreeing is ever done in consciousness, that is, every man is conscious of being that which he has decreed himself to be. The dumb man without using words is conscious of being dumb. Therefore, he is decreeing himself to be dumb." Now this isn't to say that affirmations don't work, because words, as we have seen from mystics such as Florence Scovel-Shinn, and even as mystics as Joseph Murphy, who studied with Abdullah, the same teacher that Neville did, and both of them more heavily weigh in the use of affirmation as prayer to capture the feeling of the wish fulfilled. But with that said, this is what helped Neville to go deeper, to connect more, because in essence that's what it's all about. For consciousness to give attention and thus make alive whatever it is one wants to manifest on the tangible realm. Neville goes on to say, if you, the listener, will give up all of your former beliefs in a God apart from yourself and claim God as your awareness of being, you will transform your world with the realization that I and my Father are one. This statement, I and my Father are one, but my Father is greater than I, seems very confusing. But if interpreted in the light of what we have just said concerning the identity of God, you will find it very revealing. Most people have been brought up to think that God is something on the outside, separate from us, and that sometimes our prayers are answered and sometimes they're not. But what if it is, as Neville says, God is ever as much a part of you as you are as part of God? Your awareness, that part that's hearing my word right now, that's God. And that awareness, that consciousness, goes beyond this body and mind. That this body and mind are simply the projection of that consciousness, but we have mistaken ourselves for the projection and thus limited ourselves, and thus suffer in this limitation. But we have the seed within us to erupt, to remind us of what we truly are, the divine, beyond body, mind, time, words. And how is it that the Father and the Son are one? The Father being that consciousness creating, the Son having this human experience thinking we're separate, but then that Son can wake up and realize it is its own creator. Neville goes on to say, we are told when you pray, go within in secret and shut the door. And that which your Father sees in secret, with that will he reward you openly. We have identified the Father to be the awareness of being. We have also identified the door to be the awareness of being. So shutting the door is shutting out that which I am now aware of being and claiming myself to be that which I desire to be. The very moment my claim is established to the point of conviction, that moment I begin to draw into myself the evidence of my claim. And in this, Neville's just telling you, if you want to change the concept of yourself, you have to close your consciousness to all that you knew before. Otherwise, you keep perpetuating it, because attention makes things grow. And Neville reminds us the signs always follow, they never precede, because things have no reality other than in consciousness. Therefore, get the consciousness first, and the thing is compelled to appear. So many times we're kind of brought up to look at things with superstition, or to believe in prophecy, but that's giving our power to something outside. And if all this is as Neville says, that imagining creates reality, thus everything in this outside reflection then is created from imagination, so why would we look to it for signs? We're the creator. Something we did, usually unintentional, is what brought the signs before us. The most important thing is to know what you are and how all this works. And second, since we're here and it seems part of the purpose is to enjoy, what would bring you joy? What do you want? Neville goes on to say, take your attention away from all that is now your problem or limitation and dwell upon just being. And Neville teaches that you do this by simply feeling that you are before anything else, before your name, before your sex, before your profession, before anything. Simply, you are. When you say, I am, followed by anything, before the anything, you are a living presence. And Neville also teaches to do so by saying silently within yourself, I am. And to continue to declare this, And as you continue to do so, you start to awaken something beyond the body and mind, a faceless, formless energy, an expanded consciousness, your true essence. And from this, Neville teaches to manifest from the source of your being by capturing the feeling of what you want to realize, manifest. Whatever it is you want, how would it feel to have it? And that feeling, marinate in it. And Neville knows all too much that sometimes we feel overwhelmed by all that is in the outer world, and he quotes from the book of Numbers. In that day there were giants in the land, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and we were in their sight as grasshoppers. And this wouldn't be so if somewhere in you didn't put that type of value on you. So Neville's telling you to revalue yourself. So wake to the power that you are, not as man, but as your true self, a faceless, formless awareness, and free yourself from your self-imposed prison. So Neville's saying as you start to focus on the I am, and you catch your true essence, so much of that will take care of yourself as you truly come to know and feel what you are naturally. And then from this powerful place, you feel whatever it is you want to manifest, not as a human, but as God. Why not become aware of being great, God-loving, wealthy, healthy, and all the attributes that you admire? As Neville teaches, it's just as easy to have the opposite. And the reason it doesn't feel so easy is because so long we've been what we don't want to be, and we've accepted that as normal and beyond our control. So when we're finally told, the door is open, walk out, it's a natural part of this process that you may be afraid to, that you return back to old habits. And that's why it's good to keep hearing these truths, and in whatever way that brings inspiration to your heart, that the inspiration will help you to continue to put it into practice until you have enough of your own experiences, and then you can teach it by your example. And Neville tells of one powerful way to do this by simply saying the words, "Thank you, Father," because you wouldn't thank the Father if you didn't already have what you wanted. And God, your awareness, is not mocked. Some of us have had our own experiences or know of experiences of people who joked about things that came true or even lied about things that came true. The seed was planted and it was fertile and it manifested, especially if not counteracted enough with the opposite feeling. Now Neville also warns, consciousness being God. If you hold in consciousness anything against a man, you are binding that condition in your world. But to release man from all condemnation is to free yourself so that you may rise to any level necessary. There is therefore no condemnation to those in Christ Jesus. Therefore, a very good practice before you enter into your meditation is first to free every man in the world from blame, for law is never violated, and you can rest confidently in the knowledge that every man's conception of himself is going to be his reward. So you do not have to bother yourself about seeing whether or not man gets what you consider he should get. For life makes no mistake and always gives man that which man first gives himself. So what Neville is saying here, don't pass the buck, don't blame anyone, don't be angry at anyone on the outside. They wouldn't have come to you if something in your consciousness didn't call them, either your misuse of your imaginal powers. But it doesn't matter. That is also a teaching tool to help wake you up and help you to learn how to use your God-given power. If you blame another, you're angry with another, then you can't see the link and thus change the fate. You give your power away. But if it is, as Neville teaches, that something within us brought that reflection out, then we must come back to the I am. And in every problem is a solution. As Neville teaches, if you're hungry, the solution is food. If you're in prison, the solution is to be free. Whatever your problem is, then the opposite is its solution, the feeling you must learn to feel and to nurture. Neville goes on to say, to dissolve a problem that now seems so real to you, all that you do is remove your attention from it. In spite of its seeming reality, turn from it in consciousness, become indifferent and begin to feel yourself to be that which would be the solution of the problem. And I know this can be very challenging, especially in certain areas, when it comes to matters of the heart, or when it comes to matter of health and a serious affliction. The mind often wants to ruminate in the problem. But the only way to take the mind off of the problem is to focus on what the solution would be and to learn to feel that. And like any skill, like any art, it's going to take practice. In my own experience, sometimes when I felt the worst, I would just wing it and do what Neville did and think about what it is I want. And sometimes it really did feel like walking on water, how I could feel like in hell at one moment. And then after I dared to do it, some moments later, I felt a strange peace. But one is constantly challenged or triggered by the outer world. Sometimes it does help to have tools. That's why sometimes people feel comfort in using some outside tools until their imaginal muscle grows stronger, and they may use I am affirmations, or they might script and write a little story about their life as though it was already what they wanted it to be, or one might even make vision boards or mind movies. Vision boards basically set to music and turned into a video, or whatever tools or props people might use. If that's what you need in the beginning, do what makes you feel comfortable. In the end, though, we ultimately learn to let all tools go away and become powerful where nothing is needed on the outside. Neville goes on to share testimonials that I have seen people who are in debt up to their ears apply this principle, and in the twinkling of an eye, debts that were mountainous were removed. I have seen those whom doctors had given up as incurable take their attention away from their problem of disease and begin to feel themselves to be well in spite of the evidence of their sense to the contrary. In no time at all, this so-called incurable disease vanished and left no scar. So naturally, we do what we practically can in Caesar's world, the 3D reality Earth. But whatever it is that afflicts you today, whatever it is that people feel suffering, you have nothing to lose, it costs you nothing. You could gain everything, especially knowing your true power. So dare yourself, and feel what you would feel if you were who you wanted to be, if you had what you wanted, especially in those times when the subconscious is most fertile, when you're sleepy, drifting off to sleep. But it's not limited to these times, as we know other mystics have favored the morning, or morning, noon, and night, or really any time you find yourself relaxed and falling into daydream, where the inner world becomes more real than the outer world for a moment. And when you notice these times, take a look if this is what you want to perpetuate in your life, and if not, revise it. Learn to feel the feeling of your wish fulfilled. What do you want instead? How would it feel if it was already so? Enter a daydream, hear congratulations, or give thanks for having what you want. Whatever scene would feel natural and wonderful. And for some people, it might even be various scenes. Though Neville often brings it down to one scene, he has shared some testimonials where people had a series of scenes. Whatever it is, don't be afraid to experiment and test it out for yourself. So if you're still experiencing what you don't want to be experiencing, somewhere your consciousness is still tied to being identified with these conditions, and that's why they continue to outpicture. So make practicing the I am meditation or whatever works for you a regular part of your life, especially into sleep, along with getting clear what you do want and flexing that imaginal muscle, that it grows stronger and that you reap the harvest of success for everything dear to your heart. And a big part of Neville's teachings is he really wants you to go beyond the words. That's why he didn't really advocate affirmations, because in the end, the words are simply a tool to feel something in consciousness. He's skipping the middle ground and going right to feeling. Neville says, you are told, you shall find me when you feel after me. Well, feel after that quality in consciousness until you feel yourself to be it. When you lose yourself in the feeling of being it, the quality will embody itself in your world. And we've all had this experience, when imagination becomes just as real, if not more real, than what we call reality, when we fall into the daydream during the day. Maybe at times when we're so upset and we're in our head and we're hearing the arguments back and forth. That's becoming lost in your imagination. But now we learn to do so intentionally, and for the things we do want, and for those who've made a habit of ruminating in the things we don't want. It will take some time and practice to change that mental diet, but it will be worth it. Because in the end, finding our own heaven, finding the joy of life, especially gracefully, that's the point of life. That's the point of this experience. Neville says to look upon your desires as the spoken words of God, that every desire is a promise. He goes on to say that one of the reasons that people fail to realize their desires is because they're constantly conditioning them. He teaches to just accept your desire as it comes to you. Simply give thanks at that point and be grateful for having already received it, and then go about your day with peace. And the reason we condition our desires is because we're so impacted by the outside world. For so long, we've been conditioned to think of cause and effect, and it's still foreign to think we're the creator of all. So this is to remind you that the only reality is consciousness. And Neville was asked, what happens when someone gets a desire to kill another? Is that God sent? Neville says, in answer to this, let me say that no man desires to kill another. What he does desire is to be freed from such a one. But because he doesn't believe that the desire to be free from such a one contains within itself the powers of freedom, he conditions that desire and sees the only way to express such freedom is to destroy the man, forgetting that the life wrapped within the desire has ways that he, as man, knows not of. Thus man distorts the gift of God through this lack of faith. So Neville is teaching, because of the lack of faith, we condition what we want and thus sometimes misuse imagination. Sometimes it's tricky to know what is it we truly want that's not conditioned by some limitation in the outer world. And I think often when we can transcend those conditions, we see the essence of what we want: love, health, beauty, success, joy. And we become more open to how these things flow in our life, not to say that we can't condition it. Because we do see testimonials where people have conditioned exactly what they want, and it worked for them. So if that works, then no problem. And I mean people who, like said, they'll win exactly a certain amount in the lottery, like Cynthia Stafford, and she did it. Albeit, she also lost it. But what she lost, she can make again. And Neville has his own examples of one who went to the racetrack and won in a particular way, and someone else who wanted to replicate that success and also repeated it. But Neville also taught, when in doubt, always do the loving thing. And when you find yourself maybe not wanting to do the loving thing, realize that perhaps you're conditioning yourself or confusing another for their state. This is why I think it's good to putting into practice all that Neville taught, and including the I Am meditation, and refreshing yourself with his teachings until you get it. These will help keep you on track. You'll become more aware. Are you doing the loving thing? Is this what you really want? Don't be afraid for your desires to evolve and expand. In closing, Neville says, "Come awake from your dream of being imprisoned. Realize that the earth is yours, and the fullness thereof, the world, and all that dwells therein. You have become so enmeshed in that belief that you are man, that you have forgotten the glorious being you are. Now, with your memory restored, decree the unseen to appear, and it shall appear. For all things are compelled to respond to the voice of God, your awareness of being. The world is at your command. So awake with me from the dream of life and arise as God unified. Let us lucidly dream the dream of life. And as Neville has been pointing, while we're here, dreaming, let us lucidly dream our own heaven on earth. You are a glorious being. And now that you're reminded, use your voice, your imagining, your consciousness, your presence, awareness that hears these words right now. That's the true I Am. Guard all other conditions you add to this I Am. And take command of this world by directing your attention on the feeling of that which you want to perpetuate, the great joys that want to spring forth from your beingness being love. And this ends the commentary of Neville Goddard's At Your Command by Lila for Nevillution.